Then joining me in the studio is Paul O'Connor. He's a filmmaker from Islip and he's also co-founder of Oxford-based Undercurrents alternative news agency. He's just won first prize in the One World Festival. His documentary, Globalisation and the Media, was chosen by the judges for the coveted first prize. The award was made on October the 24th in Ottawa, Canada. Well, Paul, thank you very much for coming in. It's nice to see you. And during our chat, the viewers at home will be able to see a few images from the documentary that you've made.
Great.
A few images, I say. We don't want to spoil the whole picture because I know that they'll get a chance to see the whole thing at some point. We'll talk about when and where later on. But tell me more about Undercurrents, the whole ethos behind Undercurrents, which is behind this documentary.
Okay, well, next year is actually the 10th year since we set it up, and it was partly set up because we looked at the mainstream media and how they cover environmental, social justice issues, and we realised that when they do cover it, they cover it in a very cynical way of anybody using civil disobedience to bring about change. So we said, well, let's train people to use camcorders to make their own news and distribute their own news. So by doing that, putting it onto a video cassette, we could distribute them around the country. Just like a video magazine, so people could subscribe as a normal magazine and get their news that you don't see on the news twice a year.
Now let's get back onto the actual documentary that you've won the award for, that we can see the pictures of that are being played. Tell me about the whole inspiration then behind making it, the whole reason why you've made it, and who you've spoken to along the way.
Okay, well, basically the documentary came out of a meeting I was at with the head of CNN, BBC, ITN, and all the major news channels, and they were looking at ways of why people distrust their coverage of globalisation protests that we're seeing around the world. And it's partly because they've alienated themselves. So we said, well, let's go out and find out why this alienation is happening. So we interviewed people from CNN, like the head of CNN, and we also interviewed alternative journalists and independent journalists and people with video cameras out in the streets, getting a very different view that people see in the news. And basically we're trying to give a different story of what's been seen on the mainstream TV.
What's then been the reaction then to the documentary that's been made? Obviously it's had this accolade by the One World Festival, so it's been recognised there in that sphere. What's been the general recognition?
Yeah, well, it's fascinating because I just got back from Germany where it was shown at this festival there, and everywhere it's been shown, huge debate erupts from it because people realise that, hang on, we're not getting the full story here, and why aren't we getting this full story, and what's going on here? Because we do not see TV producers on television being questioned about the sort of issues they're not portraying and not issuing. So once people see, say like the head of CNN, which we have in our film, suddenly he's having to actually question why this sort of thing is not getting on TV.
Paul, what did you find then as you were researching and even filming, because things do get dug up as you are filming and making something? Are there any real issues which you found hiding?
One of the main issues we found out was in the ITN building there's a company called Corporate Television Network, which is on the same floor, who uses the same reporters, same camera people and the same equipment to produce propaganda videos basically for corporations like Shell, British Airways, and they're posing as news as well. So we're going, well, okay, well, if television news is supposed to be objective, well, how can they be objective if they're making propaganda videos for corporations as well as trying to make news for the general public? So that was quite fascinating, and that was a very secret thing, and very few people actually know about that.
Have you managed to back all of this up with substantive evidence?
Yeah,
then?
Absolutely, yeah. Because one thing we do is, like, we are biased, and we are biased in favour of environmental social justice issues. We make no bones about that. We've always claimed that we're biased towards that way, which is unlike most television. They are biased, but they're biased towards corporations and economic growth.
I suppose all media has an agenda.
All media has an agenda, and that's what we're basically trying to get out there, to say, well, if you're biased, admit it, and then we know what everybody's playing.
I know that you've got a few shots of people being pied in the face as well. That's been something that's hit the news lately. I know that Bill Gates got famously pied about a year ago, I think. Explain the whole idea behind pieing, because some people might just see it as flippant or just fun, but it's not. It's quite serious, really, isn't it?
Well, again, the whole civil disobedience and direct action movement has always used humour, as long as I can remember, and as long as I've been involved in it. So to get all these people who are pretty hidden behind what's going on, like the architects of globalisation, tend to be these very dry, middle-aged white men. So the idea was to get pies, find these people, stick a cream pie in their face. It makes a great picture. Suddenly these faces are on television. Suddenly people are saying, well, who is Bill Gates and what does he do? Who is Milton Friedman? Who are all these people? And pie was a great way of doing that.
And it's a topic of the next film of yours as well.
That's the next film I'm going to be making, yeah.